Hey guys, it's Tanner with Built Not Bought, and we're gonna do kind of a quick video today. I need to build a nightstand for my nephew Walker, and we're gonna try to throw something together. I've got literally 24 hours to complete this, so we're gonna get right to work in the shop. We just had a little bit of a blizzard yesterday in North Dakota. The sun is peeking through now, but everything is covered in snow and ice. So I'm gonna turn the heat on in the wood shop and get right to work.
And due to the snow and ice, the roads were all closed. Daycare was a couple hours late, so I had this warrior in my shop that I had to battle before we could get started working on Walker's end table.
So there's a few challenges with this build aside from the time frame, and I'll talk about those as I get working, but another one is just finding some material to build it out of. I've got a couple scrap bins, but I used a ton of the scrap wood to make all of my holiday gifts and projects for a craft show that I was a part of. So it's really slim pickings right now, and I need to find a sturdy base to start with. I think this piece of white oak is going to be our guy. It has a little checking in it, but can probably make it work. What are you helping me make today?
Walker's table.
Nice and easy, bud. Don't pull the trigger so hard. Just do little clicks. There you go.
All right, with the sword fighting and the playing around pushed to the side, it's time to buckle down. My name's Tanner, and this is Built Not Bought, and today's project is a one-day build because I'm seeing my nephew Walker on Thanksgiving tomorrow. And nothing quite motivates a woodworker like having a deadline staring you straight in the face. In this build, it all started because the space between his bed and the door is exactly 8 inches. 8 inches. That's not a nightstand. That's a geometry problem, and I was never good at math. And measuring it felt like playing Tetris with a tape measure. I double-checked just to make sure that this design in my head would also function in this space. And I decided to build a nightstand that straddles the bed. The base will slide underneath the bed. The top sits over the top of it, keeping a tiny footprint but maximizing the function. Basically a couch arm table, but it's for a bed that people actually sleep in instead of a couch filled with Cheeto crumbs and lost remotes. Now, let's talk about the materials. This thing is made entirely from scrap wood from around my shop. And let me tell you, the scrap selection was rough. We're talking holiday shopping at Walmart levels of scarce. I was digging through the pile thinking, all right, something has to be useful here. Maybe this one, maybe that one. Some boards had nails in them, some had weird knots and cracks, others had paint marks on them. But that's part of the fun, turning the chaos that is my scrap pile into furniture. And some of these boards have been sitting around for years, narrowly avoiding the burn pit more times than I can count. Real Arc Redemption material. If wood could talk, it would be like, wow, I went from almost being a fire starter to becoming a nightstand, and now I finally get to feel important. I also wanted to try something new with this build. So I power carved the edges of the top to give it a more natural, organic look. And I added a little extra craftsmanship with a wedged through mortise and tenon on the tabletop. Not necessary for a kid's nightstand, but it just felt right. It's one of those details that says, yes, I may be built from scrap, but I can still flex a little joinery muscle. Plus, it's fun watching a piece of wood go from a flat board to I'm holding this table together like a boss.
All right, guys, I'm gonna stop for some lunch quick. And I got the mortise and tenon for both the top and the bottom of the nightstand completed, and they fit like super tight. I might have to do a little bit of cleanup work to make them not as tight so that when I go to glue it up, it's not a huge fight. But it looks a little too boxy, and to be honest, I don't like it at all at this moment. So I'm gonna pull out a major wild card here and get my grinder with a cut saw disc out and kind of like carve some of those square edges off to make it look more organic, sort of like a live edge, but not really. I kind of want to add like some wave pattern on the edges and then round over all the corners. And I'll probably do something to the vertical piece as well. I just think it looks way too boxy and boring, and it's not really my style. So we'll be back in a flash.
Cutting and sanding was intense. On a one-day timeline, everything feels like a speed run. Measuring, cutting, gluing, sanding, repeat. At one point, I realized that I was sanding at such a pace that it could have counted as a cardio workout, which is good because I'm about to plow through 4 plates of turkey, mashed potatoes and gravy, my absolute favorite, and all the other fixins. Honestly, this nightstand might be the only thing keeping me from turning into gravy myself.
Well, here we are. I got these rounded over and it looks a whole lot better, but I want to take it one step further, and I'm a little bit nervous about this because it's either going to look like complete doo-doo and I'm going to have to throw it in the garbage, or it'll look cool. But I don't know if the correct term is scallops, but I kind of want to add like little waves, like carve little waves or ridges along that edge on just the top. So I'm going to try it. I've never really done anything quite like this before, and hopefully I don't regret it.
And I really like to make myself suffer because adding a wedge mortise and tenon and power carving the top were completely unnecessary steps. But I think that this nightstand needed a little bit more character, and it wasn't like my back was up against the wall with a one-day turnaround time. Plus, the wedged through tenon is a very strong and trialed joint that's been around for decades. And inevitably, Walker is going to load this thing up with tons of Legos, books, and random toys. Imagine designing furniture for a tiny tornado of imagination. And I needed this thing to hold up to that task. You may have noticed a large crack in the base of this nightstand earlier in the video, and I'm going to address that now with a bow tie. And this bow tie is going to prevent that crack from getting wider. I didn't want to fill it with epoxy because I just felt like it would take away from this particular design. So I left the crack visible, but I put that bow tie in to hopefully stabilize it. And with the help of some Titebond 3, it was time to do the final assembly of the nightstand. Mortises and tenons on both the top and the bottom. The top had the wedges to hold it even tighter and to give it kind of a cool look because you can see that end grain through the tabletop itself. I even got a little bit creative with this glue up, including a ratchet strap just to hold everything nice and square as that Titebond 3 started to set.
Okay, the 24-hour challenge continues. It's about 4:30. I got it glued in the clamps. I'm not going to touch it for probably 2 to 3 hours. I'll probably give it 3. Ideally, I would just let it sit in those clamps all night long. And depending on how it looks after supper, I might just do that and get up really early in the morning and do a final sanding and put some Rubio monocoat or Odie's oil on top of it. The reason I'm in such a rush is tomorrow I'm celebrating Thanksgiving with my family, and my nephew will be there, and it's just gonna be a good time to have it ready and give it to him. Let me know down in the comments what you think about that top. I think that it turned out pretty cool. I know that it might not be for everybody's taste, but I just get really bored with ordinary stuff. And I like to challenge myself and try different things. I think it just has a cool, like, I don't know if organic is the correct word, but kind of an interesting edge on it at least.
Once everything was starting to take shape, getting smoothed out, and the assembly was wrapping up, I applied some Odie's oil cut down with the safer solvent that really brought this piece to life. From scrap pile reject to, hey, that's actually pretty nice. I even added a few extra details here and there just because it felt right. And the best part, it's for my nephew Walker, who is 5 years old and will absolutely not appreciate the hours I put into this. He'll probably use it to display his Lego creations, stack up his books, and smash a fruit snack into it within 24 hours. But honestly, that's perfect. Furniture should be used, not tiptoed around, and maybe someday he'll notice the wedged through tenon and think, whoa, my uncle's kind of a wizard. Seeing the nightstand come together really brought joy to me. There's something really exciting about turning nothing into something, especially in such a short period of time, all while having complete creative freedom. I basically was given one dimension, and it was 8 inches between the bed and the door. And I was able to come up with something all on my own. And that is one of the most fulfilling things and why I truly love woodworking. At this point, I would greatly appreciate it if you dropped a comment down below, maybe where you're watching from, what your favorite Thanksgiving food item is, anything along those lines. It greatly helps my YouTube channel. Also subscribe for more content like this in the future.
Well, folks, it's about 10 o'clock p.m. now. I started at about 9:30 a.m. I took a lunch break and then supper break. It kind of hung out after supper with the kids and everybody. But the end table is pretty much complete. I put the Odie's oil on it and I'm gonna let it soak for a little bit and then buff it off. Then I'm gonna get up really early and double check it. Sometimes, especially with that highly figured wood, like the top is made out of, it'll suck up more of that oil than usual. So you sometimes need a second coat. I'm laying it on pretty heavy tonight in hopes that I won't need a second coat. And then I'll buff it all off here before I leave the shop for the night. And fingers crossed that this thing is done.
So here it is, a one-day scrap wood, space-saving nightstand where the base tucks under the bed and the table straddles right over it. Built just in time for Thanksgiving, built with creativity, panic, sanding cardio, a wedged-through mortise and tenon, and some wood that finally fulfilled its destiny without ever touching the burn pit. If you enjoyed this one-day project, let me know. I think I'd like to do some more of them in the future. Thanks for sticking around for this one. I appreciate everybody that has liked and commented and subscribed to my channel already. It really means the world to me. Have a great Thanksgiving and have a wonderful Christmas. We'll see you on the next build.